my cat is playing with a bookmark and flicking it all over the floor. That's fine, ginger snaps, that's fine. Hi all, I am Stasi and today I am here to talk about my July TBR, i.e. the month of many readathon. This month there are essentially 3 readathons that I'm planning on participating in, which is friggin' crazy when you think about the fact that last year I read a total of 9 books in the entire year. But, so the readathons I'm planning on participating in are the Book Junkie Trials, Medieval-A-Thon, and Reading Rush, previously known as Booktubeathon, which I'm assuming most people know about that one, so I'm not going to go into it. I will try to link the announcement videos for all these. My cat is playing with the cord. I will try to link all the announcement videos for these readathons down below if you want more details, but to put it briefly, Book Junkie Trials and Medieval-A-Thon are both month-long readathons, whereas Reading Rush goes for about a week. Basically, the Book Junkie Trials is really elaborate, and props to the creator, like, your dedication is astounding. Has maps and everything. Basically there are 4 teams who participate and each team has a different path to follow along the map, and each location at the map has a different prompt, etc, etc. Whereas Medieval-A-Thon is basically the amount of books you read in the month determines what kind of rank in society you are, and then there are also prompts for gaining like clothing and weapons and things like that. So what I am doing today is basically I have a set TBR. So Book Junkie Trials actually has about 17 prompts and locations all up, I think, but the only required ones are your team's quest line. So that totals to 5 books. So what I'm going to go through, what I've actually got set TBRs for is my quest line, my 5-book quest line for Book Junkie Trials, and then most of Reading Rush. Otherwise I might, depending on how I go throughout the month, I might throw in some other things here and there. And as far as Medieval-A-Thon goes, it's basically going to be, for Medieval-A-Thon, I'm basically just going to be trying to match books as I go that might fit with things there, if that makes sense. So, without further ado, let's just get into some of the books I plan to read. Some I have already read since we are about 5 days into July. I'm late. I've been slack this week. So for Book Junkie Trials, I have decided to join the Bard team, sticking to my D&D class roots and the fact that I sing constantly, I suppose. We seem to be the smallest team in the Book Junkie Trials, so if you haven't joined yet, give us a thought. So the first prompt is the Thealvin Guard, which is to read a book with war or political themes. And for that, I chose to finish this beast, Kingdom of Ash. So the last book in the Throne of Glass series. I'm sure most people know what Throne of Glass is by this point. To be honest, I only decided to read this to get the series done with because I kind of feel like I had to at this point. It was an obligation just to finish the damn thing. I have already read this. I read this in the first day of July. There goes a bookmark. So that's almost 1,000 pages I read in one day. That's crazy, but there is war and politics going on in this book, so appropriate for that. The next prompt for the bards, you had to read something that was a horror or was atmospheric. So for that, I chose to read The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. I got a beautiful ebook which had illustrations throughout it, and it was lovely and an easy thing to read after that slog. I have also already read The Raven. As I mentioned, I've already read 5 books this week, so I'm almost done with that quest. But that's that one. For the 3rd book on the Bard quest line, you had to read an indulgent read. I think it's over in the other room still, and I can't be bothered going to get it. But for that, I read Suicide Squad Volume 2. And basically, this was an indulgent read for me because Harley Quinn, she's up there. Harley Quinn is my favorite, so anything Harley Quinn, I am reading purely because she's in it, so that's my indulgent read. The 4th prompt for the Bard quest line was Giant Squid. You have to read an intimidating read. For my intimidating read, I chose Nevernight by J. Kristoff. Now, the reason I chose this for an intimidating read is because I've kind of been at this point where I'm hesitant to read anything new that isn't like a standalone, because I already have so many things hanging, and because I haven't been doing much reading in general, reading something that could be a much larger commitment is intimidating, so that's why that's there. There's also the fact that this is a very popular book. Spoiler alert, I finished this and loved it. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, but that's my 4th book. I also didn't mention, but for Medieval-A-Thon, the prompt to get a crown is to read something where people are fighting for a throne. So Kingdom of Ash fills that. Nevernight fills the prompt to read a book with assassins in it, which gets you daggers. And if you read something with red on the cover, you get a cloak, which there's red on the cover of the Suicide Squad volume. So that also ties in. Yeah, yes. The last book on the quest is the Bookie Grail, which is the same book across all teams, and that is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I'm waiting on a hold of that from my library, so I will be reading that like mid-month, maybe listening to it on my way to work. So that's the only one I haven't finished already. Those are the main books I have set aside for the Book Junkie Trials, which I have read majority of already. If you can hear strange noises, it's because my cat is still running around the floor with the bookmark. Cats are strange creatures. But yes, but that's not all I'm going to be reading, because the other things I read throughout the month, I'm going to try to match to other prompts. For example, I just finished The Cruel Prince. This is what I just read today. This fits one of the prompts, which is to read a book with royalty in it, I believe. So I doubt I will read 17 things all up throughout the month, but I'm gonna be trying to match as I go and see how many I get to. Otherwise, the other thing going on this month, later in the month, is Reading Rush, as I said, which was previously BookTube-A-Thon. This is the only readathon that I've kind of participated in before. Not so much with a lot of reading, but I have done a video challenge before. If you watched my BookTube movie tag, you will see that I mentioned that how my sister and I tried and failed to make book towers once, basically for BookTube-A-Thon. But anyway, BookTube-A-Thon I believe has 7. BookTube-A-Thon has 7 main challenges, and I've picked out books already for. I've already picked out books for I think 5 or 6 of those. I can't find it. I have already picked out 5 to 6 books for that at this point. Now, by the time Reading Rush happens, I will be back at work, which I haven't been this week, which means I won't have as much time for reading. So what I've basically done is picked out a bunch of graphic novels. I'm still not sure how many of them I will actually get through, because work life is cray-cray and I don't have much time, but I have picked out some things that correlate to the challenges, and that's what I'll be planning to try and pick from, and we'll see how I go. So the first challenge for the Reading Rush is to read something with purple on the cover. For this, I have picked out a graphic novel which I've had for a while now, but it's still in the plastic wrap, and that is Gotham Academy. As you can see, there's some purple. Still in the plastic. I am a terrible human being. I don't know how long I've had this for. I don't really know anything about this other than a few years ago, lots of people were talking about it, and it's obviously set in Gotham. That's pretty much all I know. The second challenge is to read something in the same spot. For this challenge, I have picked out Fables Volume 2. Is basically kind of like fairy tale retelling, or it's fairy tales in our world. I haven't actually read any of them, but I know that this is the comic book series that Wolf Among Us, the video game, is based on, and I love Wolf Among Us. I really like that game. So I'm interested to dive into these. You will see the first one does pop up later. This is the one I picked though to read in one spot, I guess. Challenge 3 is to read a book that you meant to read last year. So for this, I have picked something that I actually bought at Free Comic Book Day last year. So obviously I planned to read it within the year I bought it, and that clearly didn't happen. It is another one that I know basically nothing about, and that is monstrous. Again, it's still in the plastic. I literally know nothing about this. All I know is that there was a stage where I was seeing it everywhere. The art is beautiful. That's pretty much all I know. I've always been a comic book lover, so I'm not too worried about liking it despite my lack of knowledge, but there's that. Challenge number 4 is to read an author's first book. Considering how skeptical I am that I'm even going to get through what I've chosen, I haven't picked one out for this, also because it requires me actually researching first books. But I know a first book that I do plan on reading at some point is Carrie by Stephen King, because I want to start getting through Stephen King's novels. At this stage, the only thing I've read in its entirety is Salem's Lot, which I read a couple of years ago and loved, because I'm a big fan of like classic vampire stories. So I need to read more, I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So challenge number 5 is to read something that has a main character that isn't human. For this, I picked out Fables Volume 1. So as I mentioned, this involves fairy tales. One of the main characters is the big bad wolf. There are also various other animals involved. Yeah, if the big bad wolf is a main character, then he's not wholly human, so that's why I'm counting this. Challenge number 6 is to read something with 5 or more words in the title. So for this, I have picked another graphic novel that I was seeing everywhere a few years ago. Probably bought it a couple years ago and haven't read it yet. It also is still in its plastic. Woe was me. But that is The Wicked and the Divine. And the first one is called The Forced Act. So it's The Wicked and the Divine, The Forced Act. I think that fulfills our criteria of the amount of words we have to have. That shine is horrible. The last challenge for Reading Rush is to read a book and then watch the movie adaptation. So at the moment, since I have to read Stardust for the Book Junkie trials, I'm hoping to read that during the Reading Rush and then to watch Stardust the movie. That's the current plan. We'll see how we go. Ooh. Alright, let's see how we go lifting some edges up. Oh my goodness. This is what I'm planning on reading in the month, and I have already read these books at the top, so that makes things easier. We'll see how we go, and we'll see what else I end up reading. If you want to follow along my progress in any of these readathons, I am currently updating via my Twitter, so I'll leave the link for that down below. Otherwise, let me know if you're participating in any of these and what you're planning on reading. Cool. So many books, Stasi out, TTFN.